"Ma'am, the Pentagon needs you. Now." That's what Colonel Monroe said, right in the middle of my 20-year high school reunion as a military helicopter landed on the Eastwood Resort lawn. Napkins flew, champagne spilled, and for the first time, every eye in that room saw me. I'm Olivia James, class of 2003. The girl they said disappeared. The sister they erased. The woman they mocked for peeling potatoes in Nebraska. They never knew I was a lieutenant general, because I never told them. Until that night. Tell me, have you ever been underestimated so deeply that your silence became your strongest weapon? Drop one if you're ready to hear what came next. Because this story isn't just about vindication. It's about truth and what happens when you finally speak it. My name is Olivia James, and I just walked into the 20-year reunion of Roosevelt Academy wearing a navy dress. No brand, no frills, and no expectation that anyone would remember me. The concierge at Eastwood Resort glanced at me, then turned back to chatting with a colleague. She didn't bother handing me a name tag, just gestured toward the check-in table. I picked up a thin plastic badge myself. It read Olivia James in a generic serif font. No degrees, no titles, no annotations. My name looked like someone had remembered at the last minute that I'd gone to school here. Inside the grand hall, crystal chandeliers hung high, casting down light like it came from another universe, glamorous and cold. The warmth of this place was not meant for me. I could hear wine glasses clinking, confident laughter from classmates, now CEOs, lawyers, senators. People who had never stepped off the path this school laid out for them. Ivy League, summer internships, perfectly timed marriages. They stood there in tailored suits, practiced smiles, and half-true, half-polite compliments. I entered the banquet hall like a shadow moving through artificial light. At the front, a giant screen displayed images from our senior year. The Washington, D.C. trip, the debate team, the chamber orchestra. All the highlight reels. Brittany Cole, my sister, was in almost half the photos. I appeared in 3. Brittany was on stage when I arrived. She wore a fitted red dress, classic cut, powerful silhouette, as if she were born to belong to microphones, stages, and applause. Her voice rang out, and after 15 years at the Department of Justice, I'm proud to have just been appointed Deputy Director of Cybersecurity Oversight for the Western Region. But I'll never forget that it all started here, Roosevelt Academy, and I'd also like to thank my sister, who's always been special in her own way. A soft chuckle swept through the room, laced with hesitation. I didn't blink. Brittany had long mastered the art of flattering as mockery. Her compliments always came with a sideways glance sharp as a razor. I found my name at table 14, next to the buffet trays, right by the emergency exit. The tables closer to the stage had gold-embossed name cards. Dr. Singh, CEO Wang, Senator Gill, and of course, Brittany Cole. I sat down on a white draped chair between a half-eaten shrimp cocktail and a plastic flower arrangement in stale water. No one at the table looked at me. I didn't need them to. From across the room, I caught the eye of Daniel Bishop, a former classmate, once someone I'd trusted. He hadn't changed much, still tall, still overly confident. Daniel walked over, whiskey in hand, his suit so perfectly tailored it was smug. "Olivia?" He leaned in with a grin. "Still living out in the desert? Or are you back filing papers in Kansas?" I smiled politely. "Good to see you." He chuckled as if the jab was affection. "Kidding. But seriously, you used to be pre-law, right? What happened? Military?" Before I could answer, a pearl-necklaced woman leaned in to whisper, loud enough for me to hear, "Didn't she drop out halfway through? Such a shame. She had potential." Lauren Diaz, sitting 3 tables away, met my eyes. She gave a faint smile, not sure if it was empathy or pity, maybe both. The air grew heavier. Servers floated by like programming scripts, carrying plates of roast beef and potatoes. Brittany stepped down from the stage, gliding toward me with a media-perfect smile. "You made it," she said, offering a ceremonial hug. "I didn't recognize you at first. That dress? Vintage?" "Just a dress," I said. "Still practical as always." She tilted her head. "You know, we should talk. I'm sure you've got stories." "Only the quiet ones," I replied. Daniel returned, this time towing 2 more alumni. A sun-kissed woman in a sharp blue suit furrowed her brow. "Wait, weren't you the one who enlisted that year? After sophomore year?" A man behind her burst out laughing. "What? Did she work the cafeteria?" Laughter rippled. Daniel just stood there, silent but amused. Brittany said nothing. I lifted my glass of water, hand slightly trembling, but I held firm. I had learned how to stand in storms without swaying. I rose from my seat. Without a word, I gently tugged my sleeve to cover the West Point ring and looked each of them in the eye with the gaze of someone who'd spent 2 decades in a command bunker. I smiled. "Close enough," I said softly, then walked out to the balcony. The south balcony of Eastwood Resort opened into a pitch-black expanse above the golf course, where pale yellow lights only reached halfway across the grass. Out here, there were no applause, no guest lists, no scrutinizing stares, just the wind and dark tree canopies swaying like a silent welcome. I rested my arms on the railing, closed my eyes for a few seconds, letting the noise from the party behind fade into the background like white noise. Then I opened them and pulled a secure phone from a hidden compartment in my small, dark clutch. The dim touchscreen cast a cold blue glow. Touch fingertip, fingerprint scan, look straight into the tiny lens, retina scan. My voice, low, precise, clear. "James, Olivia, clearance, Echo 5. A soft ping sounded. The screen instantly switched to an operations interface, oscillating metrics, encrypted data streams scrolling continuously. The words, "Secure comms active, Homeland Strategic HQ connected," appeared alongside a red alert icon. "Merlin Protocol, threat level elevated." A second later, a call signal came through. I tapped to accept. A familiar face appeared. Colonel David Monroe. Silver-streaked hair, square jaw, combat uniform still dusty from the training range, but eyes alert like someone who hadn't blinked in 2 nights. "Ma'am," he said, without pleasantries. Merlin just detected a spike in data stream anomalies out of the Baltics. Unusual encryption velocity. They may have touched structural core. We need your eyes. Now. I didn't blink. Orders from what level? Not official, yet. But Joint Chiefs are watching closely. Officially, it's tactical consultation, but we both know it won't stop there. The screen split to show a satellite map. 4 red alert zones blinking. Riga, Warsaw, Reykjavik, and 1 unidentified point near Sweden's southern border. The data streams intertwined like poisoned veins. Below the map, an encrypted report file appeared. Merlin intercept, internal breach suspected. 2 possible actors, 1 origin. Flagged by Lieutenant General James, 6 weeks prior. I swiped through the report. The markers I had warned about were back, not a glitch, but confirmation. Proof the system was being manipulated from within. "Casualties?" I asked. "Not yet, but unlikely to stay that way. It's a countdown now." A beat of silence. Not due to lag, but because we both understood things had drifted beyond control. David lowered his voice. "Olivia, I know where you are. And with whom?" "Just a reunion." "They don't know, do they?" "No." He nodded slightly. "Then keep it that way. But we need you back at Boston Commons before Monday morning." I glanced at the map one more time. 4 red zones. But now a 5th had just lit up. My heartbeat slowed. This was no longer simulation. It was live combat. One more slip and NATO's entire communications framework could be pierced from the inside. I said quietly, firmly, "I can't leave yet." Understood. But if it breaches threshold, withdrawal order will be executed, possibly within 48 hours. I nodded. The data synced to my personal secure cloud. The call disconnected. The wind was still as cold as when I'd stepped out, but now it no longer carried the scent of herbs from the party. It carried something only those who'd served in the field could recognize, the scent of pressure just before blood is spilled. I tucked away the phone, turning back toward the grand hall, where people still lived in the safety bubble maintained by the silence of people like me. They saw me as a nobody in an old dress. But I had once briefed all of NATO in that very dress. Just covered by a combat uniform back then, they thought I had withdrawn. The truth was, I had retreated into the shadows to keep them from ever seeing the world I stood between them and. A leaf drifted softly past the railing. I squinted. Tonight, I didn't yet need to return to Homeland Strategic HQ, but I knew the next call wouldn't wait for me to change shoes. I still had 2 days, and one final matter to settle here, before I boarded a helicopter that wouldn't carry any goodbyes. When I returned to the banquet hall, the atmosphere had shifted to a different temperature. Slow ballads drifted from the electric piano. Small clusters lingered around the bar, toasting with selectively intimate gestures. No one noticed I'd been gone for nearly half an hour. No one asked. They had no idea that while they were clinking glasses to 20 years of LinkedIn-worthy success, I had just reviewed a map marking 4 strategic threat zones capable of destabilizing the entire European defense axis. I quietly sat back down at table 14, my fingers brushing the table where a previous wine glass had left a damp, unspoken ring. Still me. Still Olivia in a navy dress with no designer label, but the atmosphere within me had changed, like a calm ocean that hides a storm beneath its surface. The sound of a helicopter is unlike that of a commercial plane. It hits the ground like each blade is slamming the sky with steel. At first, it was just a low hum in the distance. A few people furrowed their brows, a few lifted their heads from their drinks. Then the sound grew louder, urgent, unmistakable. A sudden gust of wind swept in from the balcony, where I had been just 10 minutes earlier. Tablecloths fluttered, hair whipped in disarray, scattered voices. What's happening? Is that an accident? A child clutched their mother's hand. A man shielded his eyes from the spotlight beaming straight onto the lawn. Then, silence. From the edge of the golf course, a matte black military helicopter, unmarked, a modified UH-60, descended slowly. Its headlights swept across the party. Flowers tore loose like shredded paper, dresses flared, a serving tray toppled, glass shattered under panicked heels. The music stopped. No one understood what was happening, but everyone felt one thing. This wasn't random. The helicopter door swung open before it had fully landed. A man in formal military uniform stepped out, tall, deliberate, each step stamping the earth like a seal. Deep blue dress uniform gleaming with medals, Homeland insignia on his collar, Colonel David Monroe. He didn't glance at the crowd, just moved forward, as if programmed for a single destination, the center of the lawn, in front of 300 people, facing me. I stood. The sound of my heels was far softer than the rotors, but when I rose from the table, no one moved. The room froze. The helicopter's light remained fixed on the ground, casting me like a character entering the final scene of her life. Monroe stopped 3 paces away. He raised his hand and saluted, formal, sharp, against the wind and floodlights, before the eyes of everyone who once believed I had given up. Lieutenant General James, ma'am, Homeland Strategic HQ requires your immediate presence. No one breathed. A wine glass fell somewhere, splitting in 2. A woman whispered, "She's a general?" I held my gaze steady, right hand lifted, returned the salute, emotion etched into my bones from thousands of parades none of these people had ever seen. Behind me, Daniel Bishop took a step back, still holding his whiskey, but it had begun spilling over the rim. He whispered, not sure if to me or himself, I didn't know. Olivia. General. I thought she dropped out. Brittany said nothing. Her red dress glittered under the harsh light, but her eyes dulled. One heel had slipped off. She clutched her clutch like it was the only life raft left. I turned, just once, looked at her. You once said I was peeling potatoes in Nebraska. Not loud, not angry, just a truth placed in the center of a glittering room where every lie had started to melt. Lauren Diaz was the first to move. She took one step toward me, eyes wide and brimming, not with surprise, but understanding. Oh my God, Olivia. The crowd began to murmur, then cracked open like waves against rock. Is it really her? General James? She served in Ghost Viper? A few claps, uncertain, offbeat, then faded. I looked around, not seeking validation, just imprinting the moment, not because they had finally seen me, but because now they could never unsee me again. Monroe took a step forward, voice low, just for me. Target is on the move. Merlin zone has reactivated. You've got 48 hours. If necessary, we'll extract you under national priority. I nodded, said nothing. The wind from the helicopter blades whipped through the thin fabric of my dress. I walked toward the aircraft, no glancing back, no bowed head, no apology needed. Just before the door closed, I caught Brittany's final gaze, shattered, stunned, with no stage left to control, no schemes left to unravel. For the first time in her life, she had no script. 36 hours after boarding that helicopter that night, I was on the 4th floor of Homeland Strategic HQ, beneath 3 layers of reinforced concrete and 4 levels of biometric verification. The Merlin tactical map was now littered with red dots, the ripples of encryption spreading like cracks through the intercontinental communications grid. But that wasn't the first thing that gave me chills that morning. Not the security alerts, not the spoofed data packets from Eastern Europe, but my sister's voice, Brittany Cole, broadcast on a podcast. I was in the soundproof briefing zone when Julia Wong, an internal security officer, urgently transferred an audio file to my personal terminal with the note, "Must listen. Brittany. Podcast. My Sister the Myth. Going viral." I hit play and listened. I'm Brittany Cole, Deputy Director at the Department of Justice. Today, I'm not speaking as a public servant, but as a younger sister. Last week, at our class reunion at Eastwood Resort, something completely unexpected happened. My sister, Olivia James, landed a military helicopter in the middle of the event, and then she vanished, like it was some kind of performance. People keep asking, why? Where has she been for the past 20 years? And that's made me ask a bigger question about the obsession with silence, about those who wear duty as an excuse to escape reality, about the need to put on a uniform to be forgiven. I stopped the file there, not because I couldn't take it, but because I knew her too well. Every breath Brittany took was crafted to sound like a heartfelt confession, when in fact it was a morally wrapped assault. I'd seen her stand before the Senate, speak about cybercrime control like she was reading a bedtime story, gentle, soothing, yet every word razor sharp. This podcast was no different. Within 6 hours, the episode had been shared across over 40 platforms. Some of the captions, Olivia James, general or performer. Helicopter stunt, glory or media manipulation. Silent war or theatrics for the feed? One viral TikTok set to slow ambient music showed me boarding the helicopter with a vague title, Deep State Cosplay? Brittany hadn't attacked me with weapons. She used doubt. And the worst part, she succeeded. Inside the secure conference room, General Avery looked straight at me. His eyes dry as desert sand, but his voice unmistakable, the kind forged in testimony halls and beachhead operations. You know I've always valued silence, General. But right now, silence isn't strength. You've been pulled into the civilian front, and if your name gets tagged to Merlin as a breach point, we're no longer talking about dignity. We're talking strategic threat. I nodded. I didn't want to respond, but I understand. This is no longer a personal choice. That night, I opened my classified inbox. There were over 90 interview requests, from The Atlantic, Anderson Cooper, even a late-night show inviting me to read hate comments on live television. I ignored them all. Beneath those were smaller entries, texts, comments, DMS. You're not a real general. No one stays silent for 20 years without hiding something. You were promoted just to parade female strength. Why has no one ever heard of you? I didn't reply. I wasn't angry, I just felt this was exactly what I'd always warned about. Silence, if not protected, will be rewritten by the loudest speaker. The next morning, Daniel Bishop showed up at my temporary office on the 6th floor. No whiskey, no smugness. Just Daniel, a 40-year-old man, crooked tie, eyes haunted with a realization that had seeped into his bones. I have to tell you something, Olivia. Go on. The night you enlisted, back then, Brittany told me you wanted your name removed from the school's honor roll, that you didn't want to be mentioned. I turned fully to him. And you believed her? I don't know. I thought she was just helping you keep your distance. She sent an email to the board, attached an entire email chain. I never wrote that letter. Daniel looked down. His face collapsed like someone who just realized they'd been holding the wrong train ticket for 20 years. I stayed silent, and she built an entire narrative out of that silence. Not long after, Julia Wong walked in. She held a faded yellow folder, creased edges, no logo, no stamp. Found it, she said softly. Medal of Honor nomination, 2018, from Operation Ghost Viper. My chest tightened. That nomination had once disappeared. I'd been told the process was paused due to insufficient documentation. But now Julia held up a letter printed from a DOJ address, signed by Brittany Cole. At the bottom, a note, General Olivia James has requested anonymity. Please do not pursue further recognition without her written consent. I stared at the line. Signature. Seal. Brittany's go-to font. I had never submitted that request. She had been my emergency contact at the time, and she had used that position to block any trace of me from reaching public records. In the cold night air of the 8th floor hallway, I looked up at the internal bulletin board where Brittany now appeared as a symbol of feminist authority in cyber governance. I didn't need to destroy her. I just needed to speak at the right time. Because truth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be clear. That morning, the sky above Roosevelt Academy was a damp gray, like old paint, not the kind of weather suited for an honors ceremony, but perfect for exposing the truth. The event, Legacy and Leadership, 20 years of building a legacy, was held in the main auditorium, attended by hundreds of alumni, faculty members, and media figures. At the back of the stage hung a large banner. We honor those who never stopped showing up. I wasn't on the guest list. I didn't need to be. Because this time, I wasn't here for applause. I was here to reclaim a voice. Brittany Cole stepped up to the podium in an ivory suit, her makeup flawless, every step choreographed. The microphone caught her voice like a melody, each pause perfectly timed to trigger applause. Success, she said, isn't a medal. It's not mystique. Success is presence, steady, genuine, even when no one is watching. A few murmured, "That's right." A journalist nodded while jotting notes. The lights lit her just enough to frame her as the ideal image of next-gen leadership. She hadn't mentioned me, but everyone understood that each word, each carefully crafted pause, was about me. Silence can be a choice, but sometimes, in silence, false stories are born and allowed to grow. I stood at the back of the hall, a modest service uniform, no medals, no rank displayed, just a file folder in hand and one photo. When Brittany finished, I stepped forward. No warning, no MC introduction, just the sound of my heels landing softly on wood, moving through rows of turned heads filled with surprise, skepticism. At first, the audience looked confused, then recognition set in, then silence. A journalist whispered, "That's her sister, General James." Brittany stood still. She didn't stop me, but she didn't step back either. She didn't know what to do without control of the stage. I walked up to the podium, faced the crowd, and set the folder down. I didn't speak right away. I simply held up a photo. Me, in combat fatigues, saluting beside General Aubrey Klein on the day I received a classified NATO honor. A photo never released publicly. No one spoke. There was no need. I lowered the photo, then began, slowly. My name is Olivia James, class of 2003 Roosevelt Academy, former band leader, founder of the International Relations Club, once voted most likely to become a university professor. That didn't happen. A few scattered laughs, not out of amusement but uncertainty. I continued. I chose a different path, one without hashtags, without reporters, without shiny nameplates. I chose to serve, not to be remembered, but to make sure others weren't forgotten. I opened the folder. Documents appeared. Ghost Viper mission records, classified commendation letters, a deployment order with my personal command signature. Some portions were redacted as a reminder that even revealed truths demand sacrifice. These are the years I lived. Not on stages like this. I don't need applause. I just need to be called by the right name. I paused, eyes landing on the front row, where the Alumni Council sat in still silence. One of them, an elderly man with silver hair, a former principal, gave a faint nod. His eyes blurred, but behind them, a sharp clarity of regret. We live in an era where holding a microphone is mistaken for merit, but let us not forget, some protect the truth by not speaking, and when they finally do speak, listen. I nodded, then quietly stepped off the stage, leaving behind the folder and the photograph. I expected nothing as I descended, but then something I didn't anticipate happened. The entire auditorium rose. No cheering, no thunderous applause, just eyes, real, unshielded, unjudging. Brittany still stood at the edge of the stage, her hands clenched, not in anger, but in confusion. For the first time in her life, she had no words. An hour later, in the East Wing lobby, the school board held an addendum signing ceremony. On the newly mounted bronze plaque in the Hall of Valor, one name was added: Olivia James, class of 2003, integrity and silence. No rank, no title. Just 2 words: integrity and silence. The official invitation arrived on a Monday morning inside an envelope stamped with the blue seal of the Office of National Ceremonial Coordination. The message was brief. The President of the United States cordially invites Lieutenant General Olivia James to the Medal of Honor ceremony at Arlington Ceremony Grounds. Time: Friday, 9 a.m. Please confirm your attendance and provide a list of accompanying family members. No fanfare, no pressure. But beneath the ceremonial lines was something undeniable. After 2 decades of service in the shadows, my presence would no longer be a secret. I didn't respond right away, not because I needed time to decide. I just needed a moment of stillness. One deep breath. The next morning, under the glimmering sunlight of Boston Commons, I received another letter, this time handwritten. No title, no seal, just 4 words centered on the page. Can we talk? Below it, Cedar and Elm Cafe, Sunday, 10:30 a.m. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Brittany. The cafe nestled between 2 old maple trees, the morning light filtering through the fogged glass. Inside, the hum of the espresso machine and the scent of cinnamon waffles filled the air. I arrived early, ordered a black coffee, no sugar, chose a corner table, back to the wall, facing the door. Brittany arrived 10 minutes late. No makeup, no assistant trailing behind, hair tied back, a pale khaki coat, and an expression with no sharp edges. She sat down without asking. No small talk, no explanation, Just a younger sister before an older one, bridging a 20-year gap. Between us, there was no greeting, only a small velvet box pushed gently across the table. I opened it. An old photograph. 2 little girls, one 8, one 11, dressed in camo for Halloween, saluting like soldiers. The younger one beamed with joy. The older was solemn, eyes straight ahead, an expression far too serious for her age. I recognized that look, my own eyes, unchanged after 2 decades. I tried to throw it out 6 times, Brittany said, voice low, but for some reason, I kept it. I looked at her, for the first time since sitting down. It's not because you didn't understand, it's because you remembered. She smiled, without defensiveness, without performance. For the first time, I saw Brittany with no role to play. I spent my whole life trying to outrun your shadow, she said. The more I tried to break free, the more I created it. And when you stayed silent, I didn't know how to face the emptiness, so I filled it with my own voice. I didn't answer. I just listened. Sometimes forgiveness begins with silent patience. I didn't want you to disappear. I just didn't know how to exist beside you without feeling small. That line struck me. Not because it was a confession, but because I realized I had done the same to her with the very silence I believed was noble. I placed my hand on the table, gently, not rushed. My fingers touched hers, and Brittany, instead of pulling away, held on. Then, I said softly, we stop running. From now on. That afternoon, I returned to Homeland Headquarters. Lauren Diaz was waiting in the hallway. She held up a soft-cover draft. Leading in Silence, Lessons from the Field. The publisher wants both of you. You and Brittany. Are you ready? I looked at her. The friend who had smiled quietly from table 17 the night I was mocked for serving. I nodded. We'll write it right. Not to justify, but to record. Friday. Arlington Ceremony Grounds. The air was still. A soft breeze. Not a single cloud. Rows of chairs lined up like a wordless hymn. Officials, senators, officers, loved ones. No one spoke loudly. It was as if they all understood. This ceremony required no sound. I stepped forward, uniform crisp, white gloves, buttons gleaming like they'd been polished by time. No gaudy insignia, no display of medals, just a single silver star on my collar. The president walked to the podium. His eyes met mine. A silent thank you. Today, he said, we honor not just a soldier, but a vital principle of this nation. Leadership does not require a voice, but when it speaks, it must be the voice the people need to hear. Lieutenant General Olivia James spent 20 years silently ensuring the safety of millions, while they slept, while they loved, while they lived free. It is time this country says thank you. He bowed his head. The entire plaza stood. I stepped forward, bowed slightly. He placed the Medal of Honor around my neck, hands that had shaken many before, but now trembled. The gold caught the sun, but what glowed brightest in me was peace. In the third row, Brittany and Lauren sat side by side. No cameras, no speeches, just presence. And that was enough. I declined the desk at the Pentagon. I also declined the top-floor meeting room at Homeland HQ, where the glass walls reflected the city like a labyrinth of power. I chose an old lecture hall at Westfield Military Center, a place that smelled of fresh paint mixed with rotting wood, where whiteboards still bore the faint marks of dry erase ink that would never quite come off. This wasn't a place for crafting global strategy, but it was where a new generation began learning how to make decisions when no one is watching. The first class had 32 cadets. All wore basic uniforms, hair cropped neat, eyes untouched by sleepless nights caused by emergency orders. But in their gaze, I saw a younger version of myself, full of questions, ambition, and a loneliness they hadn't yet named. I wrote on the board, topic, ethical leadership in asymmetric environments. A young woman in the front row, freckled skin, barely 20, raised her hand. Ma'am, what if the system is flawed? What if the order conflicts with ethics? What do we do? I looked her straight in the eyes. My voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. You lead anyway, and you document everything. Because the truth doesn't always win right away, but it will win if someone keeps it intact long enough. Some cadets smiled, some took notes, some sat silently, but held their heads a little higher. That was the beginning. After class, as I was organizing my papers, I heard a light knock at the door. I looked up. It was Brittany. No video crew, no microphone, just an old camera slung across her body and a faded khaki jacket. Sorry if I'm interrupting, she said. Not at all. I'm starting a new project, Women in Command. I want to begin with the first woman I never understood. And now I want to listen to. I nodded. Don't film me. Film them. They're the ones who will change everything. She smiled, then turned away without another word. For the first time, she didn't need the last line. That afternoon, Lauren Diaz arrived, carrying a fresh softcover proof just back from the printers. Leading in Silence, Lessons from the Field. The cover featured the silhouette of a falcon in the dark, not soaring, but watching. Readers won't applaud, she said, but they'll understand, and that's enough. I turned the first page. There, the dedication read simply, "For those who were never named, but still stood in formation." The following week, I returned to Roosevelt Academy, this time not to speak, just to bear witness. A simple ceremony at the Hall of Valor. No media, no flashy organizers, just a few faculty members, a handful of students in wine-red ties and blazers, and quiet portraits lining the corridor walls. Brittany stood at the podium. The paper in her hands trembled slightly, but her voice did not. She served in silence, but today we choose to say her name. Not for medals, not for rank, but for what she did when no one was watching. As she finished, someone tugged at the curtain covering the brass plaque. A new row of names appeared. At the very bottom, Olivia James, class of 2003, integrity and silence, no rank, no medals, just one line, and it was enough. I stepped forward. No one took photos, no one shook hands. Just one young cadet, probably not yet 19, leaned toward the student next to her and whispered, "She's the reason I applied to this school." I said nothing. I simply stepped back, letting the students take their photos, share their words, find their own voices, because I had said mine. That evening, I returned to my quarters in the faculty wing, took off my uniform, and placed the medal in a small wooden box. No lock, just a layer of velvet draped over it. On the desk, the secure terminal pinged with a new message. Merlin Activity Resurgence, Northwest Node. I opened it, read it. No fear, only the clear presence of a mission not yet over. I closed the laptop, stepped out into the hallway. No one saluted. No one noticed. But I knew. Silence was no longer darkness. It was light that needed no proving. After years of being erased from recognition, Olivia James not only reclaimed her name, she left a milestone for the next generation, a story that needed no microphone to be remembered. If you believe silence also carries weight, share this. If you've ever felt overlooked, leave a comment. I'm still here, and I still remember.